Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the MCU Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing the second film in the Deadpool film trilogy, Deadpool 2. So, needless to say, everyone loved the first Deadpool movie. It earned its budget back and then some, it was critically acclaimed, and of course, everyone loved Deadpool. As such, when it came down to making the sequel, the pressure was a little high. Not only were we promised the character of Cable in this movie, but well, the execs at 20th Century Fox realized that Deadpool was kind of a gold mine when it came to money. As such, they wound up giving the second film a higher budget, and so 2 years later, the second film finally came out. But was it good? Short answer, yes. It was actually considered an even better movie than the first one, and even earned more money than the first one. However, after 6 years, does it still hold up? Yes. Yes, it does. But we're gonna talk about it anyway, because fuck it, I need to waste your time somehow, and barring my tablet deciding to fuck up on me, we are gonna be talking about the whole movie. And a bit of a heads up, it is still very hot, so I have a glass of milk with me, so there will be times that I will be taking swigs of it, like so. Good stuff. So, with all that out of the way, let's get to the long-ass plot summary, and the film actually begins with Deadpool blowing himself up. Well, more specifically, in a narration he says fuck Wolverine and accuses him of riding his coattails with the film Logan, with that film not only being R-rated, but the fact that Wolverine decided to top him a little by dying at the end of that movie, so Deadpool promises that he'll be dying in this movie too. But why? Why does he want to die? Well, the film actually cuts back to 6 weeks earlier. As it turns out, Deadpool has gone international and has been going all around the globe, killing various criminal organizations and basically just being a regular anti-hero slash superhero. As such, his killing spree has brought him all the way back to his hometown, where he is now hunting a gangster whose name I do not remember. And while he does kill a good chunk of this guy's men, eventually he has the guy cornered in a panic room, which is locked up tight. And while Deadpool wants to wait around so he can eventually kill the guy, well, it's his and Vanessa's anniversary, so he eventually has to prioritize that over killing this guy, and decides he'll just come back to him later, because he can't stay in that panic room forever. As such, he manages to make a getaway and gets to his getaway ride, which in this case is Dopebender and his taxi. As such, Dopebender drives Wade back to his apartment where Vanessa is waiting, though also revealing to Deadpool that he wants to take up the mercenary life too. And so, once Deadpool gets home, he and Vanessa just start sucking face together and saying how much they love each other. As such, they both exchange gifts for their anniversary, with Deadpool giving Vanessa a token from the arcade where they had their first date, and Vanessa giving Wade her birth control device, as, well, she wants to have a baby, which Wade is more than excited for. As such, to try and get in the baby-making mood, they decide to sit down and watch some porn, or more specifically, they end up watching a musical, which ends up getting them so heartfelt that they actually are cuddling in each other's arms. But that seems to do enough of the job, as they decide that they need to start fucking like jackrabbits in order to make a baby. As such, as Wade gets the toaster oven ready to make some toaster strudels, he quickly realizes something's wrong, as while Vanessa is listing off possible baby names, he realizes that someone's in the apartment building. As such, he tells Vanessa to get down, and sure enough, their front door is kicked open by the leftover members of the mafia that Wade didn't kill. As such, Wade just slices and dicing through them using all their kitchen knives, and at first, he seems to have gotten them all, telling Vanessa it's safe to come out. And so, at first, he thinks everything's fine, until the head of this group comes out, that same one that Wade didn't kill, who opens fire on Wade. And while Wade tries to kill him using their butter knife, unfortunately he misses, and the gunshot the guy got off, it ends up hitting Vanessa instead of Wade. As such, Wade ends up letting the guy briefly get away as he runs over to Vanessa thinking he can save her, but sadly, she dies in his arms, much to his horror and anger. As such, she ends up chasing after the gangster, and while it is a bit of a process to get to him, eventually Wade does get to him, and even ends up hugging him in the middle of traffic, so that they'll both get hit by a truck, thus killing the gangster. But yeah, Vanessa is dead, which leads to an actually pretty cool opening title sequence where the opening titles are literally just the film going, wait, they didn't really kill her, did they? Those fuckers. With this background song for this artistic little thing being the song Ashes by Celine Dion, which I think the song was made specifically for the movie, which also led to a funny music video, which I recommend looking up. But needless to say, It's really good. I recommend the song. Point is though, Vanessa's dead and Wade isn't taking it well. As the film cuts ahead to 3 days later as we see him at Sister Margaret's drowning his sorrows. And apparently, in the 3 days since we last saw him, Wade has just been staying at Sister Margaret's, just doing this exact same thing. And while the residents of Sister Margaret's think that he should begin the grieving process of moving on, Wade doesn't really want to hear any of that shit and eventually just ditches Sister Margaret's entirely to go back to his and Blind Al's old apartment, with Blind Al still living there, obviously, but he's mostly just there because he wants to get a secret stash of cocaine. Though, before he can sneak out with it, Blind Al catches him, and, well, while she's a little angry at Wade for sneaking into the apartment, she does at least offer her condolences for what happened to Vanessa. Which Wade kind of breaks down why he's feeling as guilty as he is. Like, it's not just the fact that she's dead. That's definitely what hit hard, but what adds an extra layer of guilt to the whole thing is that the people who killed her came to their apartment because they were after Wade. And so Vanessa's death is kind of on Wade's head, and he feels every bit of that. So as such, all he wants to do is just hold Vanessa in his arms and tell her he's sorry, but he can't. She's dead. And it's here where Blind Al actually gives Wade some good advice, which I'm not going to repeat verbatim because I had it written down and I don't have the notes right in front of me. But needless to say, she basically just tells Wade that when we're in pain, we see who we truly are. And sometimes that pain is so bad it can feel like we're dying. But sometimes dying a little is the best way to help us grow. Unfortunately, Wade takes that advice a little too literally, which is what led to him trying to blow himself up at the beginning of the movie, which he succeeds in. He blows himself up, but good, ripping himself limb from limb until eventually he does die, at least for a little bit. And as such, Wade does end up crossing over to the other side when he finds himself in what looks like a phantom version of his and Vanessa's apartment, with Vanessa in the sitting room just kind of minding her own business. However, when Wade tries to run over to join her, there's an invisible wall blocking his path, and he just begs Vanessa to let him through so he can be with her. But all Vanessa tells Wade is that his heart's not in it, that this isn't right, which confuses Wade before he gets pulled back to the land of the living, as, yeah, his healing factor does eventually mend him, and, well, he has a visitor, as someone came by his apartment to pick him up, specifically Colossus, who did indeed hear what happened to Deadpool, and, well, seeing his friend kind of in the remains of his and Vanessa's ruined apartment, it lets Colossus know that Wade kind of needs a friend right now. As such, he gathers up what's left of Wade and brings him back to the X-Mansion, where he ends up loafing around for the next few days, just kind of screwing with everything. Of course, Colossus wants to help Wade by giving him a fresh start, so to speak, and by having him join the X-Men like he wanted him to do in the first Deadpool movie. But once again, Wade is just being as uncooperative here as he was in the last movies. He just keeps walking around, touching the X-Men stuff. At one point, he steals Charles Xavier's fucking wheelchair and just keeps strolling around the mansion. At one point, he just wonders where the hell all the other X-Men are, as the only X-Men he's seen so far are Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and her new girlfriend Yukio, who is adorable, and I love her, so, yeah, great. But, basically, Colossus is clearly getting fed up with Wade's shit, and he just rips him out of Charles Xavier's chair, and tells him that he could have left him in his apartment, but he came back for him because he's a friend. And friends stick by you through thick and thin, and even when it's hard. And for Deadpool, he makes it really hard. And so, after once again wondering where the hell all the X-Men are, which leads to an honestly funny cameo where we see that all the other X-Men are just in another room, and they're just avoiding Deadpool, Wade once again reiterates that he feels guilty because, again, he thinks Vanessa's death is on him. It was his fault, and he can't do anything to fix it. As such, while Colossus tries reassuring him that it'll be okay, that he does have people there to help him, and that he can move past this, well, Wade isn't exactly is still obviously a little bit more cynical. However, eventually that gets put on hold as Colossus still sticks to he wants to make Wade an X-Men thing, as the X-Men get called out for an emergency. Or more specifically, Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead get called out to a mystery, and Colossus brings Wade along as a trainee. As they get on the X-Men's Quinjet and fly out to an establishment called, give me one second, Essex House for Mutant Rehabilitation. Sorry, I had to look up the name. And apparently there's an incident, as one of the residents at Essex, this kid by the name of Russell, is causing a bit of a scene in front of the school. Basically, Russell's superpower is that he can generate extreme heat from his fists, or maybe his arms, I don't know. Point is, he can create fire from just waving his hands, and he is basically causing a lot of commotion right outside the school, and so of course the police and various other military ops come in to try and calm him down, with Colossus, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and Deadpool arriving to say that they can take care of this. Of course, Deadpool being Deadpool, he just walks right onto the scene and says that he can take care of it, as he tries to talk Russell down, but Russell is very agitated and doesn't want to listen to anyone, and so while Wade tries to be calm and nice with him, well, eventually even his patience reaches his limit, as at one point he does pull out his guns on Russell, but has to kind of rein himself in because, well, he's an X-Men now, and there are rules the X-Men have to follow, which means no killing. As such, once again, Wade tries talking Russell down, but he ends up just saying all the wrong things, which in turn prompts Russell to punch him right into a wall. And so, after landing in a cafeteria and signing in kids' Wheaties box with Ryan Reynolds, because gotta love that meta humor, he goes back out and he does manage to subdue Russell by pulling out one of his katanas, throwing them at Russell, and the hilt manages to hit Russell hard enough that he ends up falling to the ground, allowing the police to come in and fit Russell with a power dampening collar. As such, the headmaster of Essex comes out and thanks Deadpool for his service, and that they can take it from here. But Russell doesn't want to go back into Essex. In fact, he says that he'd rather go to prison, specifically a place called the Icebox, as apparently that's preferable to going back to Essex, which confuses Wade until he sees a pair of marks on Russell's neck, and he realizes that Essex is not exactly a kind place, and he starts to understand why Russell probably reacted the way he did. As such, Wade decides this is one of those 4 or 5 moments that Colossus mentioned in the last movie. That being a hero isn't always a full-time job. That there are just 4 or 5 moments that define you and make you a hero. And Wade says that this is one of those moments where he needs to do the dirty work that no one else will, as he pulls out his gun and opens fire on the stab at Essex, managing to kill one creepy-looking fucker while the rest just run and hide. As such, Colossus immediately realizes, hey, Deadpool's killing people, that's not good, and so he charges into the scene and just holds Deadpool to the ground, telling him that that's the wrong way to do things. But Deadpool says that he had to do this. Those people were torturing this kid, and they needed to pay. As such, Colossus just finally kind of hits his limit with Deadpool, as he realizes that Deadpool is always going to end up killing people, and so he just kind of holds Deadpool in place until the police can get to them, and they fit Wade with another one of those power dampening collars, and so both Wade and Russell are arrested and shipped off to the Icebox. And upon arriving at the Icebox, it's clear Wade has kind of given up at this point. With the power dampening collar on him, his healing factor is not working, and, well, Wade still has cancer, so he is not really doing so well. He's feeling weak, he can barely move, and at this point, he just wants to die. And while Russell is thankful for Wade for what he did back at Essex, well, Wade does not really want to have a relationship with Russell, as he thinks that the cancer will eventually kill him, and while they don't say this in the movie, I think that he just doesn't want Russell to get attached because of that. However, Russell does want to confide in Wade, and, well, it's here where Russell does get more into the specifics, as, yep, the headmaster at Essex was kind of a psychotic nutball, who believed that all mutants were just sinful creatures who need to be led back to the path of God via torture, with his favorite little phrase that accompanied every little torture being, "Blessed are the wicked who are healed by my hand." And that's a phrase that stuck with Russell, so much so that when he gets out of prison, he wants to find the headmaster at St. Essex and kill him. But again, Wade says that he doesn't want to help him. He just kind of wants to stay in prison. But however, Russell wants to make himself a tough guy, and he thinks that the only way they can do that in prison is by, of course, taking out the biggest guy. Though that's kind of impossible since apparently the biggest guy is this mysterious giant that's being hidden in a basement at the ice box. As such, at lunch, Russell decides that he's going to target someone else as he manages to sneak a pen out of his cell, and he ends up going after this guy called Black Tom, which it was Black something, I don't know, maybe Black Tom, but I don't know. Point is, he's the guy in charge of all the crime that goes on through the icebox, and Russell tries fighting him and proceeds to get his ass kicked as a result, with Wade also getting his ass kicked. Of course, Russell thinks that this was a good thing, that they can still make a rep, but Wade once again tells him to knock it off. They're not friends, they're not partners, he just wants to lie down and die. But although he does give Russell one very important piece of advice, that if he wants to survive in prison, he shouldn't be trying to shank the biggest guy. Rather, he should be making friends with the biggest guy. Unfortunately, though, this lesson kind of falls on deaf ears, as while Wade and Russell are in their cell having this conversation, the prison is rocked by an explosion, and it's here where the character we were promised finally comes in. Cable. Well, okay, he did appear in other parts of the movie earlier, but I didn't mention him because it wasn't important for the plot synopsis. But, yeah, Cable breaks into the prison as he starts taking care of each of the prison staff and heads into the main control room of the place, screwing with the power in the prison so much that various prison cells are opened up. And so a bunch of prisoners manage to escape, and while there's a delayed reaction when it comes to Wade and Russell's cell, eventually the door on that one opens and the pair of them grab whatever shit they can and run out of there, which is it's good that they ran out when they did, because while Cable is hacking into the icebox's security, he ends up pulling up a file for Wade and Russell's cell, and then proceeds to blow said cell up using his gun, much to Wade and Russell's confusion. As such, as the pair are running for it, Cable sees them on the catwalk and begins opening fire on them. Of course, the obvious assumption is that Wade thinks that Cable's there for him. However, once Cable manages to get up to the catwalk where Wade and Russell are, instead, Cable says, "Hello, Russell," before pulling a gun on the kid. At this point, Wade tries fighting back against Cable, but again, without his healing factor, there's only so much that he can take before he gets knocked aside, which confuses Wade. But again, Wade is very confused about why Cable wants Russell, but all he does know is that the guy with the robot arm wants to kill this kid, and he's not going to sit by and let that happen. And so he and Cable do fight as best they can, but it eventually ends with Cable throwing Wade right off of the catwalk and Wade landing right on a table, breaking his back and possibly killing him. But it turns out the force of the impact managed to break Deadpool's power dampening collar off, and so his healing factor comes back and then some. As such, Wade manages to get right back up and once more pursues Cable, and they have a much more proper fight. And as such, Wade manages to knock him into like maybe a fan or generator or whatever that was in the prison, and he managed to get his hands on Cable's gun, and he wants to know who the hell Cable is and why he wants Russell. And while Cable won't reveal why he's after this kid, he does at least introduce himself and claims that he's from the future, which Wade starts mocking him for. But again, the fight continues, especially when Cable shows that he can pull his gun back via magnetic force. As such, the two Rob Liefeld characters, because Rob Liefeld created Cable as well, end up getting into a tussle right there in the rooms, and well, despite Wade having his healing factor back, he is not doing a good job against Cable, and Cable manages to knock him aside so much that he ends up falling to the floor with a few limbs broken, and he ends up dropping the token, the arcade token, as after Vanessa's death, Wade started carrying that token around as a keepsake for her. And Cable decides to take it as a keepsake of Deadpool, which Wade is not exactly happy for, but Cable still sees Wade as a threat as he picks him up by the throat and holds him against the wall, asking why the hell Deadpool cares about Russell. And well, Russell ends up walking in on them during this point, and Wade says that he apparently doesn't give a shit about Russell, that he doesn't care about him or his "are you my mommy" attitude, as he puts it, which, yeah, I'm assuming that part of the reason why Wade said that was because he's still very detached right at this moment, or at least is trying to be. But the damage is unfortunately done, as Russell heard that and ends up running away, and he eventually ends up running. And well, as Wade and Cable have been having their battle, it turns out the guards in the icebox have been getting the prisoners under control, and Russell realizes that he can't fight against them, and so he gives himself up willingly. But in the case of Deadpool and Cable, Deadpool managed to grab the pin off of one of Cable's, I guess, grenades, so to speak, and it ends up blowing them up, knocking Wade and Deadpool right out of the building and right down a mountain slope. While Cable managed to save himself by grabbing onto a rock, well, Wade is not so lucky, as he ends up splitting his head open on a rock before falling into an icy lake, which once again does kill him and allows him to briefly cross over again to see Vanessa. But rather than trying to get past the invisible wall again, he's instead asking her for more details, because since the last time he saw her, she said his heart wasn't in the right place, and he wonders how the hell he's supposed to do that. After all, he joined the X-Men. He was trying to be a hero. He tried being a hero. So what does she mean? And that's when Wade realizes something. He needs to help Russell. And thus, with that revelation, when he's pulled back to the land of the living again, and he manages to drag himself out of the icy lake, and manages to finally make his way back to civilization. Specifically, Sister Margaret's, where he confides his mission to try and save Russell with Dopebender, who now works at Sister Margaret's, and Weasel, once again played by T.J. Miller. And I gotta give myself a little bit of a rumination from last week. I mentioned how T.J. Miller was a sexually abused woman. Well, I might have been wrong on that. Emphasis on might have. He probably still did that, as I see the allegations are still out there. So, yeah, still fuck him on that. But apparently the offense that actually got him arrested was that he tried flirting with a woman, and when she told him no, in anger, he called the cops on her and said that she had a bomb. Yeah, still fuck him and the horse he rode in on. The dude is still a massive dick waffle and an asshat and deserves to rot for everything. Anyway, back to the movie. Wade realizes that he needs to save Russell, he realizes is going to be easier said than done since Russell is still in prison. But Weasel managed to use some of his connections to figure out that Russell is going to be moved, as after the incident with Cable, the icebox is going to be taking all their prisoners and transporting them to a new location. So they can hit the transport on the way, they might be able to get Russell out of there and help the kid before he does anything stupid. However, Deadpool also realizes that going in by himself is a bad idea. The icebox is filled with trained soldiers, and Cable is going to be coming for Russell. So he realizes that if he wants to save this kid, he's going to need a team. And so he decides he wants to put together X-Force, which most of them are useless. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even going to list their names, because I didn't even bother to memorize them, because X-Force doesn't even matter in the major course of the movie. And when it comes down to it, most of the team members are useless. They are gone, and they will never be coming back. Because, yeah, spoiler warning, on their first mission outing, they all die, save for maybe like one member and Deadpool. And you want to know why they die? Because they parachuted to their location, but there was a high wind advisory in effect, and the wind messed with their parachutes and caused everyone to just die on impact. As one guy got hit by a bus, one got shredded by an airplane, one got stuck in a wood chipper, and one guy got electrified. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm kind of getting hysterical at this, but it's one of the funniest / darkest scenes in the movie, and I kind of love it. I don't know. It's just amazing. However, there are two members of X-Force that are important, and I do remember by name. One is a guy named Peter, as the joke with him is that he's just a regular guy that saw the ad for X-Force and decided he wanted to join, and I only mentioned him because he's important in the next movie, and it's just kind of funny that he's a regular guy, although he does die along with the rest of X-Force as he gets spit up on by a guy who can spit acid. But the other member of note who actually is important to the plot is a woman by the name of Domino, who is once again an actual X-Men character. Her power? It's luck. She is uncanny luck. Now, the actual explanation in the comics is that it's kind of a low-level psychic thing where she can telepathically control the odds of things that go in her favor, but in practice, yeah, She's just really damn lucky. And basically whatever she puts her mind to, it will always work out. And so she decides that she wants to join Wade's little team because, well, there's probably some big cosmic force in place that means that she needs to be here. And so while Wade thinks that her luck power is stupid, he does let her join X-Force. And so with the team assembled, Wade gets the plan in motion, which of course, again, to parachute into the envoy, a parachute onto the transport and save Russell and get out of there before Cable shows up. Unfortunately, though, Cable ends up kidnapping Weasel, and while he plans to torture Weasel to get the information, Weasel just tells him everything before he can even scratch him a little, as apparently Weasel has a very, very low tolerance for pain. As such, Cable gets all the information he needs, and so as X-Force parachutes in and most subsequently die, of course, Wade, Domino, and Cable end up clashing with each other at the convoy, which, yeah, it's a honestly really cool scene. As Deadpool also got thrown off by the heavy winds, but thankfully managed to survive. So he ends up stealing a moped and driving right to the convoy. But Cable unfortunately comes in and starts trying to kill Russell. Thankfully, thanks to Domino's luck power, she got through the winds no problem, and she managed to just get right into the convoy without any problems, even managing to kill the driver, which much to Deadpool's shock, but hey, he's not going to look a gift horse in the mouth here. And so, while Cable comes in wanting to kill Russell, Domino is able to hold him off just enough so that Deadpool can get close. And while Cable does his best to try and keep Deadpool away from the convoy, Thankfully, Deadpool does manage to get on as he and Cable get into a fight, which also leads to them mimicking one of the few good scenes from X-Men Origins Wolverine, as Cable tries shooting him and Cable tries shooting Deadpool, and Deadpool manages to slice through the bullet using one of his katanas, which is badass. Although it also leads to a funny riff on that scene as he starts shooting at Deadpool, and while he tries using his katanas to block those bullets, a few do get through, and Deadpool just goes, ow. But however, throughout all this carnage, Russell managed to get out of his cell, as he still has his handy-dandy little pen. He managed to use it to hack the security system in his cell and get out. And the thing is, after Deadpool left the icebox, Russell decided to take Wade's advice, and he decided to make friends with the biggest guy in the yard, aka the monster in the icebox's basement. And well, basically Russell promised whoever this guy was that he could get him out of there. And so after Russell gets out of his cell in the convoy, he makes good on his promise as he goes to the cell containing this guy, and well, he just unlocks it and lets him out. And so, as Deadpool and Cable keep fighting, with Cable subsequently shooting Black Tom, much to Deadpool's horror, they both end up looking over to see who Russell let out, and they're both immediately shocked to see who it is, before this mystery prisoner manages to punch the floor of the convoy, causing the thing to come crashing down. And the punch was so hard that it actually managed to get through right to the bridge that the convoy was driving on, causing the whole thing to collapse and causing everyone to just fall out of the convoy and nearly get crushed by rubble. Thankfully, Domino gets out okay, as she fell out of the convoy right onto a giant balloon. But Wade gets a little bit mangled. Thankfully, he gets out okay because, again, of his healing factor, and Cable manages to brush it off rather well. And thankfully Russell's okay too. But it's here we finally see who this person was that he let out. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time that we get a proper introduction to the Juggernaut. And before you bring it up, yes, I know the Juggernaut has appeared in other X-Men movies, but this one's a bit more true to the comics. He's a lot bigger, a lot stronger. He has a bigger helmet that actually looks nice, and apparently he's voiced by Ryan Reynolds, which doesn't have anything to do with the comics, but I think that's a fun detail. As such, Wade is just geeking out over seeing the Juggernaut, thinking, "Holy shit, you're my favorite character! I love you! I have all your comics, and it's always been a dream of mine to see my head reflected in your helmet as you come in menacingly, which I hope is not now." And yeah, the Juggernaut just runs up to Deadpool and then rips him in half. As such, he just drops Deadpool where he is and then proceeds to walk away, with Russell following behind, as Russell decides he wants to make good on his threats and go and kill the headmaster of Essex. And while Wade tries to convince him not to, all that really gets him is Russell mocking him for not having legs before flipping him off and walking away. As such, Wade is obviously upset at this, but Domino comes by to pick him up and bring him back to his home base. As such, the film cuts ahead to later at Blind Al's apartment, as Wade is just kind of wondering what to do, as he doesn't really know how he can help Russell at this point, especially since Russell just seemed so cold before. And what also leads to a funny scene is that Wade's legs are starting to come back, but at this point they just look like baby legs, which I find hilarious and everyone comments on. Well, save Domino, because in this scene, Wade actually has his mask off, so she finally sees how butt ugly he is. However, as Wade is trying to think of a counter plan to take care of Cable, because at this point he's just pissed at the guy, well, Cable comes into the apartment, with everyone pulling their guns on him. However, Cable says he's not here to fight. Rather, he's here to make a proposition. And it's here where we actually do get a proper explanation about Cable's backstory. We were shown like bits of it in previous parts of the movie, but it's here we learn exactly what he's up to. The thing is, like Cable said earlier, he's from the future. And in his future, he was, I don't want to say a cop, maybe a bounty hunter, maybe a freedom fighter, maybe a soldier. I don't know. But the point is, he was someone that typically hunted after, well, the worst of the worst, so to speak. And in his travels, one of the worst was Russell, who in the future wound up going full supervillain. As in Cable's timeline, Russell did go through with killing the headmaster. And unfortunately, after he killed the headmaster, Russell got a taste for blood. So much so that after the headmaster's death, he just kept going. Just going on, killing people one by one, until eventually he wound up killing some of Cable's people, and thus Cable wound up going after him. And, well, Russell didn't like that. And so Russell in the future decided that he was going to make Cable pay. And he did that by targeting the people Cable loved, his wife and daughter, as he broke into their home and subsequently lit the place up in an inferno, burning his wife and daughter alive, with Cable only arriving on the scene when finding their scorched remains. Sorry, I'm wondering if Chinny's coming in. As such, the only thing that he took with him from that apartment was a teddy bear that belonged to his daughter, which he now has as a keepsake to remind him what could happen if that future comes to pass. And thus, that's why he's here in the past at all, as he believes that if he can kill Russell back when he was a kid, then he can prevent that dark future from happening at all. Unfortunately, him arriving in the past, it's not an exact science. And so while he did end up going back in time, his time jump watch, well, in his own words, the farther back in time you go, the harder it is to control. And so while he could have gone back in time and probably killed Russell when he was a baby, his time jump only brought him back to 2018. And so, as a result, he kind of has to make do with what he has, because the time jump watch only has enough of a charge in it for 2 jumps, one to the past and one back to the future, which even Deadpool comments as lazy writing. And basically, like I said, he just wants to kill Russell. But that also raises the question, why is he coming to Wade? Well, because of Wade's interference, the Juggernaut is involved. And that guy is someone that you don't want to screw with. And so while Cable would still want to kill Russell on his own, well, he kind of needs some help. And unfortunately, the only person that he can think of to help him is Deadpool. As such, Wade isn't exactly willing to be on board with this, as Cable is essentially advocating for killing this kid for what he'll do in the future. But Wade doesn't want to kill Russell, because after all, at this point, he's a 14-year-old kid. He hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't killed the headmaster. He could be saved, but Cable is still advocating for it, as he thinks that Russell is too far gone, that the damage has been done, and Russell is going to grow up to become that monster. However, Wade argues against it, saying that he will help, but only if he can get the chance to save Russell. And Cable does concede to this demand, but he adds the caveat that they'll only give Wade 30 seconds, and if Wade can't convince Russell in that time to change, then he'll just kill him anyway. As such, Wade reluctantly agrees to these terms, and so he and Cable join forces. As such, once Wade's legs grow back proper, he gets suited up, gets all of his weapons together, as he, Cable, and Domino end up loading the Dopebender's taxi with the intent of going to Essex to try and stop Russell. However, on their way there, they decide to take a bit of a detour, and that detour is in Westchester at the X Mansion. Why? Well, because Wade thinks that on their own they can't take the Juggernaut either, which means he might need a bit of backup. And so, he wants Colossus's help. Although, he knows that it's not going to be as easy this time to get Colossus's help as it was in the first movie, as he betrayed Colossus's trust, and so when he goes to the X-Mansion and has a little mini boombox playing music outside the mansion, Colossus just tries drowning him out, but Wade lets him know that this isn't about him, that he understands Colossus doesn't want to help him, but this is about helping a kid, and he wants Colossus to participate in that. Ultimately, Colossus still keeps trying to drown Wade out, and so, at first, Deadpool just thinks that whatever. If Colossus doesn't want to help, then they'll have to deal with this on their own. And so, he and everyone else just get back into Dopebender's taxi and make their way to Essex, and sure enough, Russell and the Juggernaut manage to make it there first. With the Juggernaut opted, with Russell asking the Juggernaut to stay outside and guard the entrance, while Russell would go in and pretty much just burn the headmaster of the place alive, which, yeah, that's another thing that Cable mentioned to Deadpool and as a reason to help out, because the thing is, Russell is angry and out for blood, and he is willing to burn down as much as he has to just to get to this one guy. And the thing is, Essex wasn't just home to Russell. There are other mutant kids there. So if Russell burns the place down, those kids are gonna die. So, might want to help them. Unfortunately, though, as Deadpool, Cable, and Domino arrive and subsequently end up confronting the Juggernaut, things don't go well. Despite the combined efforts of all three, the Juggernaut is just too strong, as he just starts wiping the floor with all of them and threatening to kill them all in increasingly gruesome ways. However, as Deadpool ends up getting knocked into a fence, subsequently getting a spike through his brain, help arrives as, well, Colossus decided to offer his aid anyway, as he arrives on the scene, picks Wade up and pulls the spike out of his head. As such, he tells Wade to go off and try and save Russell, and Colossus himself will deal with the Juggernaut, which does lead to an awesome, as Deadpool puts it, CGI fight scene, as the pair of hulking behemoths rush at each other and just get ready to start kicking ass, with Colossus deciding that this is the time where he can fight dirty, as he just starts getting as many hits in as he can on the Juggernaut, even going for some low blows and making his own impromptu pair of brass knuckles out of a fence post. It's a really awesome fight scene. Just recommend seeing the movie to see it. Point is, though, it distracts the Juggernaut enough to allow Deadpool, Domino, and Cable to run off. And another little thing I forgot to mention, Domino finally realized why she was brought here to be a part of Deadpool's team. Apparently she grew up at Essex. Okay, she was tortured in Essex. Point is, this is her finally getting some karma, getting some good karma, and the people of Essex paying for all the shit they pulled. As such, Domino runs inside to try and go save the kids, while Wade and Cable have to stay outside and deal with a bunch of the orderlies, which is actually really fun. They just are back-to-back badasses. They end up killing them all one by one. And even Domino goes in, and there are orderlies guarding the kids, but she just proceeds to whoop their collective asses, and her luck just does the rest, as eventually all of them die in very violent and gruesome ways, and as a result, the kids are saved. However, Russell is still on the warpath and is trying to get to the headmaster, and the whole time he's just screaming at the guy to say the thing. Blessed are the sinful who are healed by my hand. And basically, as Russell eventually corners him in the chapel of Essex, he does get ready to burn him alive, until Deadpool and Cable show up, as Deadpool once again tries talking Russell down, tries to get him to see reason, but Russell still isn't having it. And so while Deadpool and Cable do their best to try and stop Russell from killing the headmaster, all that really gets is them getting blasted outside and causing a bit of a ruckus, with the headmaster managing to get away, though he's just kind of staying on standby watching from the rubble. In the meantime, though, back with Colossus and the Juggernaut, while Colossus at one point almost does get his ass handed to him, thankfully help arrives in the form of Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yukio, who proceed to help him by holding the Juggernaut in place using their powers. As Yukio's mutant powers, that she has electrified metal whips, which are awesome, which she uses to hold the Juggernaut in place, and as Colossus tries getting free, he manages to rip the butt off the Juggernaut's outfit, grab a loose wire, stuff it into the Juggernaut's pants, and Negasonic Teenage Warrior is able to give the Juggernaut an extra push using her powers, pushing the behemoth into a pool of water, shocking him. He probably dies. We don't see him again after this, so there's a good chance he's dead, but at the same time, it's the Juggernaut. He could have survived. I don't know. Point is, they beat him. But in the meantime, back with Cable, Russell, and Deadpool, Deadpool does keep trying to talk Russell down, as he does manage to get in close to him, and he does try and tell Russell that what he's doing is not right, and that it won't solve, and that if he goes through with killing the Headmaster, then he'll be everything the Headmaster already thinks he is. And Wade does try and assure Russell that he understands what he's going through. He's been where Russell's been. Not using those words, but he does try and get the point across. And he just kind of assures Russell that there are good people in the world. He just has to believe it. And so Deadpool does pull Russell in for a hug to try and be the person that Russell needs. But Russell's been hurt too much. And he decides that he can't trust Deadpool, as in the midst of the hug, he ends up igniting his fist and then punches Deadpool right into the park, which does end up scorching Deadpool's outfit black. And so Cable decides, fuck it, he's got to do the killing, and his gun only has one bullet left, so he gets it ready to try and kill Russell. However, Deadpool has one more Hail Mary up his sleeve, and that Hail Mary comes in the form of a power dampening collar, which Wade fastens to himself. And as such, as Cable charges at Russell with his gun, or more specifically, he rushes to grab the gun, Deadpool rushes at Russell, and all this in slow motion with the song "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow" playing. And so, as Cable gets the gun and shoots at Russell, Wade jumps in the way of the bullet, and it hits him, saving Russell's life. And yeah, with that one bullet, the deed is done. As everyone gathers around Deadpool, and he's dying. The power dampening collar is stopping his healing factor from healing from the bullet, and he is slowly dying right there. But his sacrifice did actually do something, because Russell realized that Deadpool really meant what he said. He tried saving him. And this does give Russell hope for humanity, and to show that time has been altered, the teddy bear the teddy bear belonging to Cable's daughter, which he had on him the whole time, it's no longer scorched. It looks perfectly fine, meaning that at no point in the future does Russell ever kill Cable's family. So yeah, everything's good. Well, sort of. Sadly, Deadpool is still dying. And unfortunately, while Colossus does come up and try to rip off the power dampening collar, Deadpool stops him, saying that he thinks this is only right. And so he does. And I'll admit, this scene is a little drawn out, and much of the good drama is kind of ruined a little by Deadpool continuing to talk. Which, yeah, I get it. He's the merc with a mouth, and humor is part of his whole thing, but I don't know, maybe the scene could have been better if he had just shut his mouth. But eventually he does die. And he does cross over one last time. Only this time, he's able to pass through the wall. And upon passing through, he holds Vanessa in his arms, and the scars that he had are gone. He's looking like himself again. And he just holds Vanessa, and he just says he's sorry. He didn't mean for any of that to happen, but Vanessa is just happy to have him there. And they just embrace like there's no tomorrow. However, back in the land of the living, Cable sees all this, and he decides that he needs to do something. As, while throughout this whole thing, he just saw Deadpool as something more than an idiot and a clown. He just saw this idiotic clown risk his life to save a kid, and well, Cable thinks that such heroism should be rewarded, and so as he turns his back on the dying Mr. Wilson, he pulls out his time slipper watch, And meanwhile, back on the other side, Vanessa suddenly looks forlorn as she realizes that Wade can't stay, that his family is waiting for him back in the land of the living. And so Wade, while reluctant, does realize that he needs to go back as well, and does turn around to leave. But before he goes, he and Vanessa do run into each other's arms and just start kissing. It's genuinely sweet, and I love it. But eventually, Wade does get pulled back to the land of the living as Cable ends up activating his watch. And, well, he doesn't go to the future. Rather, he goes back about maybe, I don't know, half hour, 10 minutes, I don't know. Point is, he goes back in time to when he, Deadpool, and Domino first arrived on the scene in Dope Ender's taxi. Only this time, before they go into the school, he essentially cops a feel with Deadpool's bicep. As such, from there, everything goes exactly as it did before. But they fight the Juggernaut. Colossus arrives. Yukio and Negasonic Teenage Warhead offer backup. They corner Russell. Russell says, I can't trust you, blah, 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 and eventually Deadpool gets shot. As such, it still does everything it's supposed to, because Deadpool still risks his life for Russell, and Russell realizes he can truly trust Deadpool and that there are good people in the world. But Deadpool is not dying. As such, as he gets back up, he wonders why the bullet didn't kill him. And so he reaches to where Cable copped a feel and finds the token. The one that Cable stole from him earlier. It's because it was solid lead, it stopped the bullet. And Deadpool quickly realized that in order for Cable to put this token in exactly the right spot it would need to, he had to have gone back in time. And so Deadpool realizes that Cable used up his last time jump. Which Cable denies that he did all that to save Wade, because his excuse is, I just gotta stick around to make sure you guys don't fuck up the planet. But Wade knows that he did it for him. As such, Wade's life is saved. There's still the matter of the power dampening collar. This thing, it's dangerous, and the thing is, Wade still has cancer, so they gotta get this thing off him somehow. And thankfully, Russell once again pulls out his handy-dandy pen, and he manages to get in the mess with the lock on the thing, as he managed to pull out a number pad. And he says that of course, that means they need to put in a combination to open it. And Domino gets a lucky guess right out of the bat, saying, "Well, they just put in 7, and 7 is apparently all they need because." Apparently whoever programmed that power dampening collar was an idiot. Point is, they get it off of Wade and he's all good as new. As such, Yukio and Negasonic Teenage Warhead end up leaving because they took the Quinjet to get here, so they gotta go take it back. And in the meantime, the rest of our heroes decide that they should leave, with Domino having saved all the kids from F6 in another scene, as during the battle with Juggernaut, the Juggernaut wound up throwing a bus right into the building, so the kids used that to get away. However, as everyone was walking away, the head of Essex ends up calling out a bunch of dirty mutants that they're all going to burn in hell for being what they are. And Cable almost gets ready to just shiv this guy himself. But Deadpool says no, they can't kill him. They'll make them all exactly like he says they are, and that they just need to wait and let karma take its course. Before the headmaster is run over by Dope Ender. Yeah, Deadpool said he heard him coming 30 seconds ago, and he was just trying to keep a straight face until Dope Ender ran the guy over. It's actually really fun. But either way, yeah, Headmaster's dead, Russell's soul is saved, and so Wade walks away with everyone as he realizes he has found a family, and one that he's happy to stand by with through thick and thin. So yeah, that's Deadpool 2. Although there are mid-credit scenes, and yeah, these mid-credit scenes are mostly gags, but they are kind of important. Because you see, it turns out that Cable wound up handing over his time slipper watch to Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Or maybe to Wade, I don't know. Point is, he gave it to someone, and Wade brought it to Negasonic Teenage Warhead to hack. And so she and Yukio end up messing with the watch, and they manage to restore enough power to it so that it can be used again. As such, they hand it back to Wade, who... While they only wanted to fix it so they could see Cable rip Wade a new one, Yukio and Negasonic Teenage Warhead quickly realize they just gave it a watch that allows someone to time travel and gave it to a nutball whose hold on to sanity is loose at best. And as such, Wade proceeds to use the the time slipper watch to undo some past mistakes. Specifically, he goes back in time and 1. He saves Vanessa as he manages to kill the guy from the mafia before he can enter the apartment. Then he goes a little bit more into the future as he ends up joining up as before Peter can get killed. He tells Peter to walk away so that he'll be fine. That X-Force is nothing, and so that allows Peter to live. And then he decides to get meta as he goes back in time to X-Men Origins Wolverine and shoots the Deadpool of that timeline before he goes back in time. Wow, that's a lot of sweat. Before he goes back to when Ryan Reynolds accepted the script for Green Lantern and shoots the good Mr. Reynolds in the head. I love this movie. Yep, I'm just going to say it right now. I love this movie. When it comes down to it, Deadpool 2... Hold on one second. Sorry about that dog stuff. But, yeah, like I said, Deadpool 2... It's a really damn good movie. It is, in every sense of the word, a perfect sequel to the Deadpool movie. It not only continues the story from where the first Deadpool movie ended, but it manages to take everything that worked from that first movie, improves upon it, and cuts out all the stuff that didn't work. And the first example of that? The story. When it comes down to it, this story is a lot more nuanced than the first Deadpool movie. When it came down to the first Deadpool movie, the plot was, like I said, pretty cookie cutter revenge stuff. As you had a bad guy in the home of Francis. And ultimately, what the plot boiled down to was that Deadpool just wanted to get revenge on Francis for fucking up his face, and so. That's how the story went on from there, with everything else kind of showcasing how Deadpool grew into being, Deadpool, establishing the identity, his motivations, and so forth. And as a result, the plot of the first movie, like I said, was just pretty basic stuff that you would probably just see from any other superhero movie. But Deadpool 2 essentially goes off in its own direction, as this film is, in many regards, more of a character piece, which, to kind of give another compliment to the movie, the writing for this movie is a lot better than the first one. And I'm not saying the writing in the first film was bad. It was still, because the writing in the first film was very good. All the characters were written very well. Deadpool was, of course, gold, as he should have been. The jokes did hit and actually were well done, and there was still enough drama that you felt sorry for Deadpool. But this film really ramps it up. One problem that was kind of in the first one is that while the jokes were legitimately funny and you did feel sorry for Deadpool, sometimes the jokes did kind of overshadow the darker bits to a degree. And as a result, when it got to some of the more serious stuff in Deadpool 2, you couldn't take them as seriously. And I know I said that it balanced the drama and the comedy well, which it did. It still did, as you did feel sorry for Deadpool and you wanted good things to happen to him and you understood why he was the way he was. But when it got to Deadpool being more zany, when it got to the more serious stuff, it felt more like that stuff was. It didn't feel like that stuff could have been taken as seriously, which kind of helped add to the genericness of the plot. But in this movie, they balance those two out, the dramatic and the comedic, a lot better, because right from the get-go they already established kind of that things are going to be a bit dark as we see Deadpool literally blow himself up before we get a how did we get here again, as we see Deadpool killing criminals across the globe before eventually those activities result in them hunting him down back to his apartment and subsequently killing Vanessa. And the thing is, while Deadpool never lets up on the jokes after Vanessa's death, because in fact, if anything, he just ups it, there's an element of tragedy to every single joke he makes. Every single one. And I mentioned before how in the first film he uses humor to kind of deflect from the more serious issues. Well, that's even more apparent in this movie, as when he's dealing with Vanessa's death, it feels like that he's detached from everything. And while he keeps making jokes and screwing people and breaking the fourth wall like he always does, it just feels like that he's only going through the motions. He's not doing all this because, this will be prime entertainment, or he's trying to amuse himself. No. This is a man who is just broken. He has nothing left to live for, and the only reason that he is just still doing everything is because he has no idea what else to do. And when he finally does try to put an end to it just so he can see Vanessa again, even that fails, as his healing factor ensures that he can't cross over. That even if he does kill himself, eventually his body will repair enough of himself that he'll just pop right back to the land of the living. And it's just, it makes you feel so sad. Add on the fact that, like Deadpool said, he blames himself for what happened to Vanessa, and it just makes everything feel a lot more tragic. And it basically feels like, you ever hear the story of Bonzi the Sad Clown? He was basically a character from a Call of Cthulhu game whose main shtick was that he was basically just a sad clown that was going around kicking cultist ass. And he was legit. And I've heard, if you haven't heard the story, I recommend looking it up. It's actually some good stuff. But the whole gimmick with Bonzi was that he was always sad and lonely and just kind of melancholy, and yet he kept making jokes, kept shooting up cultists, and even managed to get a really big win in as he actually took care of the final, as he wound up killing the cultists in the final ritual. It's actually really good. I recommend looking the story up. It's a good tabletop RPG story that I think should be heard more. But it's that kind of character that we see with Deadpool here. He's a sad clown, a broken clown, one who really does not see the point of going on, but continues going on because he has no choice. He can't do anything about it, and so to try and cope with the loss he's dealt with, plus the added guilt of knowing it's his fault that his loved one is dead, he just kind of reverts back to his typical style of humor, and he just kind of ups it. And as a result, while you are laughing at his jokes, at the same time, there's a little part of you that feels so sorry for this guy. That while you like seeing him have this humor, you kind of wish that you could feel more happy for him in these moments. And it works. It legitimately works. And the drama that that comes from this really does work, as you see everyone around Wade trying to help him through this, and getting frustrated as he resists them at every turn. When he's going around the X-Mansion just screwing around and complaining about how the studio couldn't get him a bigger budget for the X-Men, and just riding around in Professor Xavier's chair, and even wears the fucking Cerebro helmet, he still just keeps making joke after joke after joke, and he doesn't let up. And it makes it come across like he isn't taking anything seriously. And that's because at this point, he truly has given up. And nowhere is that more apparent than when he gets taken to the icebox for shooting at the staff at Essex. At that point, he's basically at this point, he is still very much suicidal. And now he has been handed a golden opportunity to end it all right here at the icebox. He's wearing a power dampening collar that cancels out his healing factor, and his cancer is still in abundance. So now all he has to do is wait. And you see that broken spirit throughout the entire icebox scene. Like I said, Russell keeps trying to get Wade to open up to him, tries getting Wade to be friends with him, but Wade just keeps telling him, "We're not friends, we are not partners, find someone else." Excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I was checking on the dog. But again, like I said, getting back to my point, at this point in time, Wade is just a death seeker. But the thing is, like all good heroes, he does want to help people. And while he wants to try and give up and do nothing, once essentially an innocent is put in the line of fire, he does his best to help him. Case in point, when Cable breaks into the icebox and starts targeting Russell, Wade does his best to try and protect this kid. And this is before the collar comes off again and he gets his powers back. He is still putting himself between the angry man, half cyborg from the future, and this kid. And so he's still doing his best to try and fight him off and try and fight Cable off and make sure that this 14-year-old doesn't suffer. And he doesn't stop. He just keeps going. And yes, at one point he says he doesn't give a shit about Russell, but I like to think that was just Wade trying to keep Russell at arm's length because, well, it's Wade Wilson. Like I said, he's kind of a death seeker at this point. And it isn't until he crosses over a second time and sees Vanessa that he is kind of given that his metaphorical light back in his life, as he realizes that if he wants to try and find something to live for again, He needs to protect Russell because this kid is just a victim now. He's being targeted by this man from the future who wants him dead for reasons that Deadpool has yet to learn. And he knows that and Wade knows that if he doesn't stop Cable, then Russell's going to die. And as you know, and when it comes down to superheroing, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And so that actually does bring the light back to Wade. Is when he comes back to life again, like I said, he assembles X-Force. He goes charging in. But throughout the whole thing, essentially you see this struggle with Wade as you kind of see the light come back to him. See him get back into the groove of things, being more of his jolly self again. When he assembles X-Force, he's having fun. He pokes fun at everyone when he can. At one point during the scene when most of X-Force fucking dies and Domino only manages to get by thanks to her luck, he's just ranting and raving about how stupid it is for someone to have the power of luck, and not only an idiot who can't draw feet can think of a character like that. And as he thinks that all is going to fall on his shoulders, Domino's already in the driver's seat of the convoy. It's, again, really good. I like it. Really good. I like it. And that's not only like I said, it's not only one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie, but it helps show that Deadpool is back in his element. But that continues throughout the movie, continuing to level out the drama and the comedic. When Deadpool is bartering with Russell, trying to convince him not to kill the headmaster of Essex, it feels genuine. You can feel that he's trying to connect with this kid. He's failing, but you can see that there's just, as he puts it, maximum effort being thrown in. There does feel like a genuine moral conundrum. When he's told by Cable that in the future Russell becomes a monster and that Deadpool should just let Cable kill him, you can just see the horror on Deadpool's face. He's like, but no, like, I'm sorry. As he tries to let Cable, look, I'm sorry for your loss, but you can't just kill him right now. He hasn't done anything bad yet, and he's just a 14-year-old kid. You can't just kill him like that. Again, it's really good stuff, and it shows the strength of Deadpool's character. Yes, he's an anti-hero. Yes, he's a mercenary. And yes, he's fucking loony, but he has a good heart. His sense of humor is really fun, even in the darkest of scenarios, and no matter the situation, he will fight for your soul. He knows he's damned. He's done too much bad to think he's a good person. But that means he'll go to hell and high water to make sure that you don't stoop to his level. He knows what it's like to dip into the muck. He's still basically waist deep in the stuff, and he'll do everything he can to try and keep you out of it. It's good. It's really damn good, and it's just really good writing. And on top of that, it's really cool. On top of that, his moral conundrum with Cable is also really well done, because you have these two opposing sides that are arguing over what's the morally righteous thing to do. Is it a good idea to let Russell live and possibly let him grow up to potentially become a supervillain, or should he be killed and thus save even more lives? Again, it's a very interesting conundrum, and it's up to you which side you fall on in that regard. I'm kind of more on Deadpool's side. He hasn't done anything yet. He's just 14 years old, so I think that maybe Russell deserves a chance to actually live. But it is a very interesting one. And basically what Deadpool wants to do is to try and find a third option. Try and stop Russell before he kills anyone by trying to essentially get him to see the light, so to speak. And it's a very good one. It's very good and kind of gets to the core of Deadpool 2 when it comes to its writing. While Deadpool says... Excuse me a second. Again, sorry, dog stuff. But yeah, like I said, while Deadpool says that a central theme of the movie is that it's a family picture, which... that is an important part of the movie, as part of Deadpool's character throughout the movie was about him finding a new family and moving on from Vanessa's death, which kind of makes part of the mid-credits a little pointless, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But another major theme in the movie is redemption. Deadpool believes throughout the movie that he is beyond redemption. That not only is he a mercenary, but his actions have resulted in the death of people he cares about. And it's because of that guilt that he becomes, like I said, a death seeker. That he wants to be killed. Yes, he tries to still be a superhero, but his heart's not into it. And yes, it was Vanessa that told him your heart's not into it, so that's what led him to wanting to join the X-Men. But it's clear he was only doing it because Vanessa told him that's the only way that he can see her. And yet, even as he was doing all that, he still genuinely believed that he was a monster who was just better off alone and dead. But ultimately, part of his journey throughout the movie is not just that he finds a new family in the form of Domino, Russell, Cable, and everybody else, but also that he is a good person. And that regardless of what he believes about himself, he does have a heart, and he is a hero, even if his methods are a little bit more brutal. And the same kind of and the same is true when it comes to Russell and Cable. Cable is the Cable comes into this story believing that Russell was beyond redemption. That at the point that Russell, no matter the time, that even though he hasn't done the thing that would lead him to becoming a supervillain in the future, is still a monster and is too far gone. That he deserves to die and that he is beyond redemption. But Wade is the one arguing the opposite mindset, that at this point that he's still a kid and his soul can still be saved. And thus throughout the story, we're kind of shown that battle with Russell as well, as we see what looks like a very angry kid who just wants payback for all the pain and injustices he was put through, and ultimately being told and ultimately he's being tugged between two sides. One side says that he's already a monster and needs to be treated like such, and the other side saying he's not a monster and can be better. And it's very good and it's very interesting. And the thing is, by the end of the movie, I think it really showcases that nobody is fully beyond redemption. Because the thing is, regardless of what Deadpool wants to think of himself, like I said, he did still put his life on the line for Russell. He didn't die for Russell, and if it wasn't for Cable going back in time and giving him back his token, he would have died right there. But at the end of the day, ultimately, him doing all this, him putting his life on the line and risking everything for this kid, it showed Russell that there were genuinely good people in the world. And thing is, on that day, Deadpool became his hero. He saved his soul. And as a result of that and those actions, Russell changed. He realized that there were good people in the world and that everybody doesn't deserve to burn just because of the actions of a few bad ones. And I'll say this, they do not excuse anyone at Essex. Because the thing is, part of the whole point of this is to stop Russell from killing these guys. Because once Russell gets on that path, he just starts developing a bloodlust, like I said. So the point is to basically do the dirty deeds yourself. Since these people are already damned, but not gone too far, but not crossed the line, so to speak. They can basically kill. They're basically morally justified in these things, which admittedly does kind of ruin the message a little when these guys go around killing people, yet they tell Russell no killing, bad. But at the very least, it still is a nice little. It still feels very emotional as we see this kid who has been tortured for much of his young life finally get the message and decide that he wants to be good. It's genuinely sweet and nice, and I think it's a good message to show that ultimately that nobody's fully beyond redemption. And a good way that they showcase that in the movie, there's no villain. I mean, okay, there's Cable. And he does, for the most part, act as an antagonist for a good chunk of the movie. But his motives are far from villainous. He wants to kill Russell because Russell, as an adult, killed his family. And he believes he'll be saving more lives by killing Russell now as a defenseless kid rather than waiting for him to grow up to be an adult and kill even more people. It's rather dark, and part of Cable's whole arc throughout the movie is realizing that people can change for the better. As thanks to Deadpool's intervention, like I said, Russell changed, and thus in the future, Cable's family was spared, and all the people that Russell would have killed were saved as well. It's actually really nice, and it's again really nice, and it's a good way of showcasing his character growth as well. He is still big and gruff and so forth. And I should probably bring this up now. He's played by Josh Brolin, who played Thanos in the MCU. So, and yes, they do make a Thanos joke at one point. It's still very nice to actually see him. It's nice to see his arc throughout the movie, and ultimately, again, and even in the end of the movie, when they bring in the fucking Juggernaut, he's not the big bad. At best, he's an obstacle. He's there to support Russell and push Russell down the darker path, but he's not the main villain. There, if anything, the closest thing that we have to a main villain in this movie is the Headmaster. It was him torturing Russell that would have pushed him down the path to becoming a villain and eventually killing Cable's family. And yeah, he does get his comeuppance by the end, but he's not really an active force throughout the movie. The majority of the movie focuses exclusively on Deadpool and his relationship with Russell and Cable, and how it's again really well done and really good. But ultimately, the clash doesn't come from them wanting to kill each other, or one trying to defend, or one trying to do the right thing while one's just straight up evil. It's just two clashing mindsets. Both one vouching for keeping Russell alive because he can be good, and one thinking, like I said, he's beyond redemption. And it works really well and handles these subjects in a very mature manner. And I dig it. It's good. I like how it's handled, and I think overall it's enjoyable. But as for what else makes the movie good, well, I already mentioned how the writing is a lot better. Again, Deadpool's jokes are still kick-ass, and as I mentioned, the drama is handled perfectly. Being able to mix the comedic and the dramatic in a very nuanced and clever manner that doesn't make either feel like that they're overshadowing the other. The action, it's just perfect. It's kick-ass. It's cinematic. It's fun. It's high-octane. It's fast-paced. And it's just a treat to the eyes. The acting is perfect all around. Everybody turns in great performances. And it's just amazing. I just dig it. Like I said, I love the themes presented throughout the movie. I love the meta-commentary with Deadpool, as Deadpool is still an awesome character. I loved the climax and how, like I said, how it was basically just a battle for Russell's soul. When it comes down to it, I think Deadpool 2 is just a far better movie than Deadpool 1. That doesn't mean that Deadpool 1's a bad movie. If you still want to watch that movie, you'd still get enjoyment out of it. But Deadpool 2, like I said, I think raises the stakes higher than before and just has fun with it. And like I said, if you're a comic book fan, there's plenty of Easter eggs in here that you'll enjoy. From having the Juggernaut to Domino, which I think was a great contrast. As I think she's also a Liefeld character and actually a lot more popular. Well, not more popular than Deadpool, but you get my point. And overall, and again, there's just so much fun to enjoy. If I have to list one flaw with the movie, it's, believe it or not, the mid-credits scenes, which they're funny. I'm not going to deny that. The Deadpool going back to X-Men Origins and killing his counterpart in that timeline was great. Him shooting Ryan Reynolds before he can accept the Green Lantern script is honestly kind of some good funny meta humor there. And again, I love the self-deprecating humor with Ryan Reynolds there. But the ones I don't like, believe it or not, are when he went back to save Vanessa. And maybe Peter. Okay, not Peter. Peter's fine. He was just kind of a goofball who essentially wandered into the main action and decided to step in because he thought it'd be fun. And admittedly, and the thing is, him being saved is important in the next movie, but sadly, so is Vanessa's. Which, I'm glad that she lived. I'm glad for that. I like her. She's good. And again, part of the drama with Deadpool in that regard is the loss of someone he cares about, combined with the guilt of feeling like he's responsible for her death. But the thing is, all of Deadpool's whole character arc throughout the movie was basically trying to find a new family and moving on from her death. So it kind of shoots that whole character arc in the foot when he just goes back in time and saves Vanessa from dying. And the thing is, it's canon. They acknowledge that Deadpool went back in time and saved Vanessa in Deadpool and Wolverine. She even appears in the movie as a character, which I'll talk about when I look at that movie. But the point is, it just kind of shoots the whole character arc that you're going, or even your plot, in the foot when he goes back in time and essentially stops the inciting incident that led to it. So it's a little annoying, I admit. Again, I brushed it off originally when I saw Deadpool 2, because I thought it was maybe just like a quick after-credits joke, especially with the meta humor of Deadpool going back in time and killing his former self, and then Ryan Reynolds before he can go into Green Lantern. But, again, with it being fully acknowledged in continuity, yeah, I do think it's a problem. It's a minor problem in the grand scheme of things, but one that gets a lot bigger when you stop and think about it. But maybe maybe the idea is that Wade still wound up going on his little revenge spree, especially since what we see in the third movie, there are still consequences to Vanessa almost dying. So maybe the movie still happened. I don't know. Point is, it still just feels a little weird. But at its core, though, Deadpool 2 is a really damn good movie. It's a great sequel, contains everything that worked in the first film, cuts away the stuff that doesn't work, continues the story in a new and interesting direction, and overall, it's just a great time overall. I say do yourself a favor and go and check this movie out. You will have a fun time. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson. Apologies for the sweat stains on my shirt. Again, I did warn you it was hot. But next week, we finally get to the film that got me looking at all these Deadpool movies, as we finally look back to the one that actually ties into the MCU with Deadpool and Wolverine.